Hey, ladies, how are you today?
Hey, Cathy. I'm doing
How you
good.
doing?
I just love that quilt behind you, Tracey. It's beautiful.
Thank you.
I love geometric quilts sometimes, Square is good.
Yeah, it's a really fun quilt. This is the first quilt I ever quilted on my APQS, my first APQS machine.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow.
Fabulous.
Mm-hmm.
So I just have my
Special.
wood wall behind me. And you have your whole cloth behind you.
Pretty much whole cloth. There is one green strip of fabric on it.
Oh,
But
there you go.
it's all the way over here. Let me see if I can get it. See? No, I can't get it that far. Wow. Well, there is. Just trust me, there's a green stripe down this one side. I'm afraid to actually pan the camera because on either side of this quilt is a disaster.
Sure, right. No.
No, we're not showing you the room.
My disaster is facing the other way, so it's all good.
That might actually be funny at some point for a live, though, is to actually show our studios, our showrooms.
So every single time I go teach Quilt Path, yeah, Tracey, every single time I teach Quilt Path, and before I plug in my thumb drive, I'm like, okay, everybody, this is Cathy's brain. Cathy's brain is on steroids and drugs, and I'm going to let you in, so no judging.
So my husband says that he is a squirrel on drugs, right? Because he has ADHD and his boss is a squirrel on meth.
Oh man.
And he can see the difference. And I'm like, oh Lord.
Yeah, that's too funny. So let's talk about what you need to know to start a business.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
We should.
And the little things, maybe more the little things, not the big things.
I mean, I think we can all agree that, you need to get some advice from professionals as far as forming your business and the finance side of your business. I think what we want to bring up is more running the business as a quilter, right? Because we're creative. That's why we're quilters. Some of you may be business people too. Like the three of us are definitely business people at this point, but I didn't start quilting to run, a retail establishment. That was not what I thought I was doing. Tracey and I were in this together when we started our showrooms. I know that's not her dream when she first started hers either. And you started out not in a showroom too. So all three of us, we kind of just did this thing, right?
Sure.
So more of coming at it from the creative mindset, the things you need to think about. Like, how are you going to get your first customer?
I worked with a guild.
Me too.
Yeah.
Yeah.
A guild.
And
Quilters travel in packs. So once you've done one or two from somebody,
you're going to do more.
They start talking, right? But
yes.
my advice would be to think about whether or not you want it. If you want it to be a business, that's great. But just know that when you turn your hobby into a business,
it's not a hobby anymore.
You'll no longer be doing the hobby that you loved so much. So you have to be prepared that that's going to go away because you won't have time to play and be creative and do all those fun things that you used to do just because you felt like it.
Yeah. Right. So let's take a step back. And have you even decided you want to do this as a business?
Right.
What are the type things that you should think about? Well, first of all, when you're buying your long arm, I'd be thinking, do I think I want to make money with this? Or is this just for me? And set your boundaries, right? So if you don't want to do this as a business, when someone says, hey, but you could quilt this for me and it would be great, you say, yeah, I'm not quilting for others.
Right. And it's okay to say that. And it's okay to say that to your BFF, your best friend ever. I am so sorry. This is all for me.
I'm going to tell you it's okay to say it to your mom.
Oh, even better.
Now, she might be able to guilt you, trip you into it later, but at least say it to your mom. Right. If you mean it, say it. Yeah. So, and you have to set your boundaries. And a lot of what we do is setting boundaries, making sure that people understand what we're willing to work and what we're willing to do. Sorry about the blackout. I did pay my power bill. Really, I did. Set the boundaries up front, though. If you're not going to be a professional quilter and this is just for you,
Yep.
It's okay to tell your friends, I'm not quilting for others, but here's a long armor that I used to use and I love, and definitely go and talk to her or him, right? And share the love, right? You don't have to quilt for others ever just because you bought a long arm.
Right.
You get to decide what you want to do.
Right.
Right.
And it's good when you're talking to a salesperson, aka one of us or whomever. I love knowing if somebody is firm in their belief that they are never going to quilt for other people. And the last time we did a roadshow, all of my customers that bought a machine all were for themselves. So no talking the business. It was it was just like amazing. I'm like, and if you do, just come back and talk to me.
Yeah.
We can help you. But all of it was just for themselves.
Yeah. And unless you're in if you're at a sales event and you're in a big group of people and there's people who want to start businesses and people that don't, obviously we have to talk both, right?
Right.
But if you're in a one-on-one situation where you're talking to a salesperson and you're saying, I don't want to do a business, and they're trying to convince you to do a business,
you better walk away.
Yeah. They're not listening to you.
Right.
Right. So they should be able to change speeds and talk to you just as a creative quilter too. Right. So things to think about just in the sales process, right?
Right.
Once you have the machine, if you choose to be a quilter, you really need to set your boundaries. So maybe this thing's all about boundaries.
Boundaries are very important and are very healthy. Very healthy.
I think too, as women, I know for me personally, if I'm going to buy anything that costs a lot of money, I feel like I can only purchase that if it's going to make money.
Yeah.
Right.
Like when I bought my first long arm, it was with every intention of, it was to start a business. I didn't realize how much I would fall in love with it, but it was to start a business. Like I would have it would never have occurred to me to spend that amount of money as a hobby. Like just for me, just to be creative. And that's my own personal.
I'm in that headspace with you.
But I think as women, a lot of us are like that. We feel like, oh, I shouldn't spend that much money unless it can make me money.
Or that they're not worthy. I will say on the domestic side of selling machines, if you have most of the time, if you have a husband and wife team and the wife is like, well, let's go down in price range. And the husband will be like, let's go up in price range. And they almost start an argument there. And finally, I'm like, listen, because I think we as women have a hard time hearing that we are worth something. Like your man is telling you something awesome, or, your spouse is telling you something awesome. Listen, hear what they're saying. They're saying something beautiful to you. Right.
Well, and if you're looking at a traditional couple, we'll put it that way, right? A lot of times the man, if he wants to go get a new woodworking tool or a new boat or a new lawnmower, is going to go out and spend whatever he wants to spend to get what he wants the first time, most of the time, right? At least my husband doesn't want to buy something twice. So he's going to overbuy to begin with, so he doesn't have to buy things twice.
And there's value in that.
There's value in that. And I know when I was looking at my long arm, I was looking at the one I bought. I bought a Millie to begin with, and I was looking at a Lenny, right? Because Lenny is less expensive. And my husband says, you're getting one. So I knew you guys would laugh at that one.
Silly Matt.
I'm on number 13, guys.
Yeah.
So, just counting, right?
Yeah. One with the 3 followed behind it.
And I have every intention to at some point say I've had 25 long arms. So just know that this is where I live in my world. But it's like
a lofty goal.
Yeah, lofty goal. If we're still APQS reps in 10 years, we're all going to be there.
Yes.
So it's okay. It's what it is. It's equipment to me at this point.
Right.
And that's a different way to look at something too. When you go into business, that long arm that you love becomes a piece of equipment.
Mhm.
It may take a little while for that to happen, but that's what it is. It is business equipment that you use to do your job.
Yes.
As opposed to the long arm you bought because you loved it and wanted to quilt.
Right.
She did. Tracey's like, don't think of it that way.
You know what? I have a 2017 Lucy here. She needs to go because I need the space because my Lenny is wrapped in a blanket underneath my new Lucy and quilt path.
It really is.
I can't do it. I love that 2017 Lucy so much.
Well, you know, I have a 2017.
I can't sell her.
It's yeah.
I am attached.
Yeah. I mean, I think there's a little part of you, just like our children, there's a little part of you that goes with them when they go off to college. There's a little part of them when they move out that goes out with you.
I can talk very callous. I sat on the ground and cried when my 2008 Millie got on the truck and left. So I can talk callous. That doesn't mean I'm not attached.
Yeah.
I mean, I have an unreal, the person who bought it will every once in a while post it and say how much she loves it. And I'm like, yes, my baby.
See, I would be like, well, you better be like being good to my machine because in my head, it's still mine.
Yeah, it's still mine. You only have custody of it temporarily.
Yeah. Temporarily.
No, I'm over selling that machine now. I mean, my 2017 Millie 30 is my baby, right? I haven't upgraded to the new one yet. I'm sure that will be happening though.
Right.
So
yeah, it's hard.
Right.
Well, Millie 30 may have to come to my house for a while which is what happened with the 2008 too. It came home for a while when I got all the new machines the first time. I just haven't bought a new Millie 30 yet. So yeah.
I'm going to take my Lucy home. That's my plan. I may have to just put her on. I've got a 7-foot frame. I may just put her on a 7-foot frame and just take her home and just play.
There you go.
You know,
that sounds heavenly, actually.
So one of the things that I told you guys earlier, didn't tell everybody earlier, is that I'm redoing my home studio. And that's one of the things I'm doing. I am going to put a machine on a short frame in my home studio so I can film from my house.
Yeah, that's what I was thinking. But then I thought, oh, you're doing it again. Like for me personally, it's like, okay, I'm going to take this home instead of selling it because I really like it. I really love that machine. I don't want to sell her. I do have a shorter frame she can go on. But if I take it home, then I should be filming videos or I should be doing this or I should be doing that. And it's like, but was the point of taking it out of the shop and taking it home. And now at 7 feet long, I'm not doing anything large, obviously.
Right.
But I could play and experiment and just like have fun.
That'd be fun. That sounds fabulous.
Yeah.
So as a business model, YouTube model, why would playing and experimenting and having fun not be something good for you to put on YouTube?
Oh, for sure. Oh no, it's trust me. It's all in there.
Yeah,
it's all in there.
And no, I'm not saying she's crazy, guys. I'm saying it's it's in
there. We are entrepreneurs, and this is always going.
This is part of running a business, though.
Yeah.
Anytime you're talking to another business owner, you end up bouncing ideas off of each other.
Yes.
And that's one of the things I love best about talking to the two of you. When the cameras aren't rolling, all three of us are throwing out business ideas.
Right.
So if you're going to be thinking about starting a business, my suggestion would also be to make friends who are business owners.
And it does not have to be quilting business owners.
No, it can be, but it doesn't have to be.
Right.
So I've gotten some of my best ideas from a friend that isn't in the craft industry at all.
Right. Yes.
So, it is what it is.
So here's another thing to think about of when you're getting ready to buy your long arm and getting to set up, quote, your business or maybe not your business. One of the things that one of our very first issues of delivering a long arm, and this was a lady that moved from California to here, had a stairwell that went down, turned, went down, and turned, right? Had a 12-foot table and trying to figure out if they can get the bars down there. So my husband is 6'7", Jake is 6'4". Jake had the bar because all of the APQS machines are solid bars, and I know there's other brands out there that have solid bars, but Jacob had like this much off of the carpet, and Doug had this much off of the ceiling as they moved that bar down.
Yeah.
So one of Jacob's great advice is when people are thinking about where they're going to put their long arm, go get a 2x4 that's long enough and see if it can fit into your stairwell if you have a stairwell to go down. And then you can use that to lay out what you think your space is going to be because it's such a visual.
I've had to put them through windows before.
Oh, sure.
I was going to say when mine came to the house, they both came in the basement window and went out the basement window.
Sure. But this one it would have taken so much more time because half the table was up and all this other. I mean, there were some things that it was just an interesting lesson to learn.
If you have a more modern home or a more modern building, you usually have one pane of glass in your whole window. But some of the old, like Iowa farmhouses, have individual panes of glass. And I know that the APQS delivery team has actually had to take out a pane of glass that was just big enough to get a roller or the rails through to deliver a long arm. And then they had to repoint that glass.
Wow.
You want to talk about a company? That's service, right?
That's totally.
Yeah, I'm looking at them going, I don't know how to handle that. And I'd be the one that would break the glass getting it out, right? They're like, nope, we just take it out, get the stuff we need to do and put it back in.
But that's something to think about when you're, like I said, it was a great advice that Jake now tells at our road shows. Go get a 2x4 because that's super cheap and you can at least feel and take it around. And then you can lay it out and see where and how you're going to set up your longarm room. That's another thing to think about before you start, I think, sewing, don't you think? If you're always going to be around to the back or you can always be to the front.
Yeah, because when you talk about kitchen design, you talk about your triangle in your kitchen, right? Your stove, your stove, sink, and refrigerator, right? Well, we have that same triangle type thing that we're dealing with when you're piecing, when you're quilting, right? Because you have typically a cutting board of some sort, right? An ironing board, a sewing machine, right? So making sure that you have good flow between things and that you can still get to your long arm if you have a long arm. If you don't have a long arm, I mean, we don't have as much of a triangle when we're long arm quilting as you do with the domestic sewing machine.
So are you sure we don't have like a cutting table, a sewing machine, ironing board, bigger ironing board, sewing machine? Are you sure?
I do, but it's more of a mishmash. It doesn't have to be a triangle. It can just be a big blob. Welcome to why Tracey and I are not showing you our showrooms.
Right.
Nope.
Yeah. So Cathy's showroom is actually a fishbowl.
Yes.
Yeah. Mine is not. A little bit different because hers is in the back of her big, quilt store. When you walk into Tracey and I, you pretty much walk into long arms.
Right.
Because our world is long
fabric in between. But it is a fishbowl because I've been putting a little sign out there because I have to get a custom quilt done. Do not disturb custom quilting. So now I feel like don't step on the glass. The quilter's going to go crazy.
It's okay to drool. We'll clean it up later. It's fine. It's okay.
You put a sign on the door that says, don't feed the quilter.
We have all kinds of those, that creativity going on the inside. We have all kinds of cute little things actually on there. It's kind of
fun. You can only knock if you have chocolate. Yes.
Yeah, that kind of thing. But yeah, do not disturb the long armor, that kind of thing. We do have that. But it is interesting having somebody watch you.
It is.
So
that was really unnerving when I first got my showroom because I was used to quilting in my basement by myself.
Right.
Right. Oh, sort of basement in my studio by myself.
Mhm.
And all of a sudden people would come into the showroom and they would just stop and look at me. Or my favorite one, we were more of a fishbowl in my last showroom, had floor to ceiling windows across the entire front of it.
Mhm.
And Michelle and I were in there quilting one night, and we were just quilting away. But the music was up. We were singing and dancing with it. That's who we are. And quilting, right? Getting our work done. And all of a sudden she goes, Angela, look at the front door. And I looked up and I was like, and there are 3 pickup trucks backed into the space in front of our showroom. And there's guys sitting on the gates with the gates down, drinking beer, watching us. Like 8 of them.
That's kind of creepy.
It was really kind of creepy. So me being me, I walked out and said, hi, what's up? And they went, what are those things? They were sitting there having a conversation, trying to figure out what we were doing.
Mm.
Wow.
So it was funny because I talked to them and told them what was going on. And they were like, oh, well, you guys are really entertaining. I'm like, you guys are easily entertained.
Yeah, no kidding.
It's like, you know,
You guys
very
are-
easily
What
entertained.
kind of dancing were you doing exactly?
That went through my brain. I'm not gonna lie. That went
Yeah, but I'm the one that says everything out loud. So
Yeah, we're not that exciting. Well, you know, I'm a little old lady, so not that exciting.
That's pretty funny.
Michelle can move better than I can. We'll just go that way. We'll just go.
okay.
So back to our original topic. What other things would you say besides your setup that you would need to like literally say, hey, I'm ready to go? What would you say is kind of ready to go?
So I would already be a member of a guild or a member of a group that needed quilting, right?
Right.
To me, it's easier to all of a sudden say, hey guys, I just bought a longarm after they know me and possibly like me.
Right.
Than to walk into a group I don't know and say, hey, I'm a longarm quilter. That confidence comes later, right?
Yeah.
It's not typically, oh, I just bought a longarm, right? Now I'm going to walk in and say I'm a longarm quilter, right? It's usually, I've been quilting for several years and know I'm a good quilter, right?
Right.
So setting yourself up to get that first customer is important. Deciding if you're going to do charity quilts, how you're going to do charity quilts, because invariably someone will walk up and say, you're a new longarmer. Here's 15 quilts that need to be quilted for charity.
Right.
And they may not tell you what the charity is.
Right.
May not actually be charity, right? I'm going to give these 15 quilts away, right? So it is charity, right? So setting up your boundaries at that point, at what's going to be okay and what's not going to be okay for you to do.
Right.
And then I think my biggest one is if you're going to do this as a business, it's not a hobby. Like you need to think like a business person, and run your business like a business. Because when it comes right down to it, people seem to think, oh, I'm going to say I'm a business and I'm going to get wholesale pricing, or, I'm going to save money doing this. I'm not going to have to pay as much for other things. When it comes right down to it, there's a price to doing that.
Yes.
And the price to doing that is sometimes having to sit in front of the IRS and convince them that you're a business. So it is easier to do that if you think like a business to begin with and you act like a business.
Right.
Because they're not going to question you at that point.
And you keep track of everything. Absolutely.
Yeah.
And then also that leads to vendors. You got to be careful with which vendor and what their annual requirements that you buy are.
When you're looking for vendors, most of the longarm companies will have a list of vendors that they'll give you that you can get wholesale accounts with.
Right.
Some of the vendors are honest and say, yeah, there's no minimum. And there really isn't a minimum and everything's kosher. And then some vendors will say, there's not a minimum, but at the end of the year, you find out there was one and you didn't meet it. And then it's harder to get an account with that people later if you do grow your business.
Right.
So at some point you have to decide, is it better to just buy, let's say, your thread wholesale, because you're not going to buy an entire line of thread. Right. Or is it better to do is it better to buy retail because I'm not going to buy a whole line, right? Or is it better to do wholesale because I am going to buy all the colors, right? Or buy multiple of colors. I used to think, oh, I'm a wholesale, I should be a wholesale customer because I'm buying, $200 or $300 worth of thread a year. Yeah. So when I do a thread order now, it's thousands of dollars.
Oh yeah.
Right. So I now understand the difference in what the vendors that did say there wasn't a minimum and then later said, yeah, there really is a minimum. I understand why they did it, because a lot of times you will buy more than you think you will. And if they say, oh, well, yeah, we have a $500 a year minimum, whatever it is, you're going to buy that. Right. So they're hoping that you're going to actually buy more than what their minimum actually is. But I also understand from a business standpoint, them saying this isn't in our best interest. Right. Hard message to get on the receiving end, but you also have to look at, they are running a business.
Right. Right. And it's not fair to, not that I'm trying to be, not fair to the bigger businesses that really work really hard at what they're doing and spend share the equal amount of. I am not going to have the same purchasing power as Joanne's. Okay. No, my person in the basement doesn't have the same purchasing power that the three of us have. So there's those different levels to think about.
Well, and you have more purchasing power than I do. Right. Mm-hmm. And that's just understanding where your business is and the big, the sea that you're trying to navigate is an important thing too. Right. Like, I can't walk up to most vendors and say, yeah, you want to deal with me because I'm going to sell you, I'm going to make it worth your while. But I am trickle income for them. Right. I'm still able to buy enough that they're probably going to talk to me. Right. All three of us do. Because when we were in our basements, I still bought a lot of thread. I mean, thread was crazy in my basement even. Mm-hmm. I sometimes thought somebody was going in and eating it at night because it just disappeared.
Yes.
And that was before I was selling it to other people. Right now, it is scary what my orders are. You know that. You both know that.
Okay, here's a good story for you. So we're on this little business trip, and we have a doorbell in the back because the business is so long. So Jake and I are sitting together, and our phones go ding 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 because we both got the same notification. And in comes the thread box from Haberdash. And then I'm looking and following the business for receipts to see how the business is doing throughout the day. And I look in one of our embroiderers businesses came and bought $400 worth of thread that Molly just stocked up. And it's every business owner's dream to have your fabric the thread to walk in the back door and walk immediately out
right out the front. Yeah. Never have to be shelved. Great.
At the same time, I got to poke Molly and say, dang it, they must know. They must know. Because it's like every time.
Yeah, it's scary.
Mm-hmm.
And that's something, the other part of it is budgeting for your business, right? Because we're just sitting here going, yeah, we spend this money.
No.
We've got budgets. We know what we should be spending on thread most of the time. Unlike Cathy, I'm a little more of a emotional purchaser than she is. She has a little devil on her shoulder who tells her she's not allowed to, and it's not Jake.
So, her name happens to be Cathy.
Cathy too. Right. But I'm more of an emotional purchaser too. Oh. So I'll decide, I won't necessarily look at my books. I'll go, I want a new thread line and go out and buy it. It has not bitten me in the rear end yet, but it will eventually if I keep doing that. Right? So understanding what my budget is and what I can spend. And if you're going to be doing this out of your house, you don't need 200 colors of thread.
No.
You don't.
You can limit whatever you have come into your house and what goes out of your house. You can limit and say, I only have 10 colors Therefore, if you are not happy with this, then maybe I'm just as an example. That's a drastic example.
I mean, I can do this with 10 colors.
But I'm just saying.
You're going to need more than 10 colors.
You need more than 10 colors. Don't listen to Cathy. You need more than 10 colors.
But I'm saying the point is you get to limit how many colors come in. And you can say, well, I don't have that, but I have them close to it. You know, I'm just saying you have control over what's in your business.
Yeah.
Period.
I mean, are you going to stock batting for your customers?
Right.
Are you going to stock wide back for your customers or buy wide back for you?
Mm-hmm.
Right?
Mm-hmm.
Are you going to buy enough different type of items to make more sense to go to a distributor instead of going directly to the companies to get wholesale?
Right. So question for you. Did you sell batting when you were working in your basement?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Same here. Did you sell some wide backs?
No.
I did.
Okay. Those are good things.
I worked at a quilt shop.
Okay.
Yeah.
So
yeah. And that's another thing. Are you going to be working in conjunction with another business that's going to put limitations on what you do? So I used to go in and meet my customers in a quilt shop. Okay?
Yes. Fabulous.
So even though I sold batting, if I was inside that quilt shop and they were dropping a quilt off for me, they'd say, oh, and just put batting in it. And I'd go, this is what you need. Go pay for it.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
I'm using per floor space, right? So making sure she's making money off of this too.
Right.
Mm-hmm. It needed to be a two-way street. So if you are doing that and you are meeting inside of somebody else's business, you need to be very conscious of that, right? Yeah. And you need to make sure that you are a value add to their business too, not just to yours. This isn't a one-way street.
And on the other side, because I was just at Iowa Quilt Block, Iowa Quilt Block, yesterday, and she was talking about how she has a long armor do exactly what you guys were doing, going picking up the quilts and taking them home and work on them. Mm-hmm. But she asked the person, are you busy enough? Are you getting too busy? And she's like talking about getting out of her limit, and or maybe eventually, so she's been doing this for 25 years. I'm like, I asked the question, is she getting ready to maybe potentially retire? So that's a two-way conversation. You need to be respectful of her. She needs to be the quilt store. People need to be respectful of you, but to have that open dialogue to say, hey, I'm getting close to my max. You might want to start, farming people out to this, and this person, kind of conversations.
Yeah, you can't do it all. And that's another boundary that you're setting, right? Is being realistic on what you can and can't do. So one of the things that I do is I know how many quilts we can quilt a day. And I know how many days there are from the end of September, how many work days until we close in December.
Right.
I have figured that out already for this year. Because we start telling people in September, if you want this done by Christmas, you need to bring it in. Okay.
Yes.
That is the only time. Normally we do a 2-week flip, which kind of makes Cathy nervous, but edge to edge quilting, we can usually flip in 2 weeks. We can't do that in the fall because we get too busy for Christmas. But my customers are used to it. So we start having the conversation early. At least I'm not alone going dark. Oh, by the way, you're already coming up to Christmas again. Is your quilt done?
Right.
And what that's subliminally telling my customers is we can't do last minute quilts for you for Christmas.
Right. Mm-hmm.
Now, if we finish all of our quilts, which sometimes does happen that we get done with our quilts early, mm-hmm. and somebody needs a last minute quilt, we will quilt it for them. Mm-hmm. But that's rare. I'm going to be honest. That's really rare. Normally I'm like, want to learn how to long arm? If we can get you in here to rent, And
a great saying for long armers, I think, is the lack of preparation on your side is not me to hurry.
Yeah. Procrastination on your part is not an emergency on mine.
Yeah.
Is the quote. Yeah. It's okay. I live by that quote.
Okay. Yeah. Yes.
Yeah. And here's the thing. So they're going to have an emergency at Christmas. Mm-hmm. They're going to have an emergency for Valentine's Day, for Easter, for graduation,
Mhm.
for weddings. Like
Mhm.
the emergency quilt person is going to have an emergency 15 times a year. So you get, as a business owner, get to decide if that is something you can deal with or not.
Right.
And for me, I just decided there is no quilting emergency. Like you choosing to make a quilt for this wedding 2 weeks ago is not an emergency on your part. Now, you giving me the quilt 2 years ago, and then that is an emergency, right? Because it's an emergency that I created, not you, if I have not gotten the quilt done.
Right.
And I'm joking about that because two of us know that I did have a custom quilt for over 2 years. That I said I was going to film it, and I didn't in the end. But yeah. And then she said I need it for a wedding, and I'm like, oh God. Like I was supposed to get that done last month, but I loaded it on the frame and took it back off. I'm an idiot. So we did get it quilted.
That's a whole other podcast.
Yes.
Learn from what we did and
Learn
not
from my mistakes. That's a great podcast. Learn from my mistakes. I have a whole bunch of them I can share with you. And I know these ladies do too, because we talk. Yeah. When we have those emergencies, this is who we talk to. Yeah. You have to know what you're willing to do. Do you want to be able to quilt your own quilts as a professional long arm quilter? If you do, you need to put them on your schedule. Block out part of your schedule or put them in line. Your choice.
Right.
But if you want to get them quilted, they need to have a spot.
Mm-hmm. But most, I mean, I can't think of two. I mean, we've covered quite big things. I'm going to say the other thing I went from, I did not particularly, I mean, there's different ways of having methods of loading your quilt, and don't be afraid to try the different ones, just because if you bought a used machine or a new machine, it came with X, Y, and Z to try from one to the other.
And I change my loading at times based on what I'm loading at that moment. If I look at a quilt and go, whoa, this top is super wonky, I normally full float and I'll partial. I'm going to choose to do what's right for that quilt at that moment.
Mm-hmm.
But the reason I know what's right for that quilt in my world, just inside my world, right, is because I've tried a bunch of things. So I would encourage you to try it and not just listen to the person teaching you who says this is the way you do it. Because I'm going to teach you different than what Cathy's going to teach you, who's going to teach it different than what Tracey's going to teach you.
Mm-hmm.
All just to how to put it onto the frame. Okay? That's not a bad thing. All three of our loading methods work wonderfully for us, right? You need to learn what's going to work for you. And the nice thing is the three of us are going to support you with whatever you decide. So you can say,
there's no one right way.
No.
The
Just
Quirky
be happy.
Quilters said I was right. It's like, just throw us under the bus. That's what we're here for.
That's what we're here for. It's good to try new things, though, because you never know in parts of your life where you might need a different way to load, or like I'm talking more like the zipper versus pinning versus red snappers. You know, you're going to different things for different parts of your life.
There's Velcro. There's more than just the three that we normally talk about.
Right.
There are probably 20 different ways to physically attach your quilt backing to your rollers. Like how you
I knew someone once who stapled the quilt backs to the canvas leaders. I remember seeing that thinking,
okay, so
I do that every single day.
How do I put this? APQS does that in booths.
Yeah.
Well, I had never seen it before.
Yeah.
And the first time you see it, it's like, to me, it was like, well, that's genius. That's what went through my brain.
Yeah. So, and I do it in booths too, because you don't get poked. That's actually why they're doing it, is that you can get poked by pins.
So but a staple is just the size of a pin. Yeah.
Yeah. You like, I haven't gotten cut in a booth like I have in my showroom. They're not as sharp. So that's one of the reasons they do it, is to try to save our uniforms and stuff. We're in the booth, so we're not getting caught on stuff. But yeah, they always have, and you know, it's stapled on there for a long time because they keep, you know, using that same backing they are loading lots of yardage of backing on when they load it, and then they, you know, cut the tops off, but then just pull it up and load it back up to the top again.
Right.
So yeah,
That
it's
was
a
when I
valid way to do it.
right when I saw Mark and Josh come over to do a road show and they were stapling. I'm like, that's ingenious. That's what went through my brain. I'm like just like Dawn Kavanaugh teaching you about a pen when you're loading. She goes, now make sure you use a pen when you poke a pen, do it 45 degrees in. That's when it's the most effective. Going 45 degrees in. Don't try to slide it along the fabric. That's not where it's going to work. And so she shows you how to wiggle it and to get that 45 degrees as you're putting in that pin all the way along the leaders. And I'm like, yeah. Like that's the most simple thing. And then you hear it said that way and it's like, that's brilliant.
Well, Dawn is brilliant.
Well, she is, but I mean, it's just the simple things that we take for granted sometimes. If we'd step back and look at it, what's actually happening is like, let the tool do what the tool needs to do.
Mm-hmm. I've never, thought about my pins that much. I just put them in.
I know. I'm listening, thinking
45 degrees. Okay, I'm going to try that.
Well, I mean, but because she talks about, I'm going to try to use my
bevel on the pin.
Right. The end point is where it needs to go in like a nail. So if you take your fingers and smush and make S's with your quilt top as you're putting it in on the back side, so it butts up against that wall like a pin going into a board, like a nail going into a board, it's going to work more effectively. So she's
isn't that how people put pins in things?
I mean, Dawn specifically talked about it in our education class, and I just thought, yeah, because most people try to slide it along. You try to slide it along into the fabric instead of going 45 degrees into it.
Oh, I've always gone straight down and then.
I know, but I'm just saying some people try to slide along thinking that's the better way when it's the 45 degrees. Yeah, it's just those simple things that make it like, poof.
And breaking down why she's doing what she's doing. I mean, she knows what she's doing and what she's doing.
Right. And so now I teach that to everybody and they're all like, oh, yeah. It's like this big revelation. And it's like, that's how the tool was made. And then, yeah, we all make things way so more difficult than what the whole thing is.
Yes, we do.
That's the lesson from that, I think.
I think so too.
So I would also try some different pins. Maybe you're going to fall in love with a new pin that comes out because there's some new pins that have been coming out that are really fabulous for long arming when you're doing that, or you're piecing, or if you like the thinner ones, or if you like the thicker ones. Don't be afraid to experiment. Scissors too. Can't have enough scissors. Scissors are fabulous.
Snips all over it, all over the place.
Everywhere.
Yes.
I had someone say the laser light holder. I was like, you mean the snip holder on the top of my machine? Because I've never had a laser light up there, but I keep my snips there. I can't have a long arm without one of those.
Right?
They all have snip holders.
Mine has a little koala at the top. My machine has a little baby koala writing. And can I tell you about the APQS service? Because we had one of the first 2019 Millies, and she had a few issues because it's the brand new thing, and of course, new design, new things, right? Because it's a new machine. She had to go back and get fixed, and Jacob took her over for the day. We're so very lucky to be within driving distance of the homeland, as I call it. And on my machine went the little koala. So they took pictures of the little koala going through the whole factory. Isn't that cute?
That was Angie.
No, I'm just saying, that's just beautiful that they took little pictures of the koala going through the whole process, because she basically had to get completely naked and then to get back, to get to the part where they needed to, and they got it done within a day, and Jacob came back with her. It was amazing. So cute, right?
That is cute.
Right. That service team is awesome. My gosh. I love them.
Me too.
All right. So set up your room, figure out what you're doing for business plans, stick to your guns, set your boundaries.
Set your boundaries. And it's okay to say, I would prefer not to do that, or the word no is completely okay.
Practice that no. Practice.
In the mirror, say,
yes.
No. It would be lovely if I could quote that quote for you in that time frame, but unfortunately that is not possible. It's like that, there's
And
ways to say it, and
very nice.
trust me, I just say it now. I already know what I'm going to say as they start talking. I'm like, yep, graduation's tomorrow, isn't it? Yeah. It's like, yeah.
Here's the other thing too. Don't be afraid to put, like, if that relationship is not working with that quilter,
Yeah.
to be able to say, I don't think I'm the right long armor for you. That's like a great way to say it. I don't think, instead of saying you're like a most awful customer.
It is okay to politely divorce a customer.
Yes. I don't think I'm the right long armor for you. I think you might want to pursue some other options. Yeah.
Yeah. And they usually know I've thought about it a lot if I have a list for them. Typed up, ready to hand them after I say it.
Wow.
Oh, yeah.
Have you had?
I actually had one long armor tell me not to put her on her list anymore. If I needed to give them that list, she didn't want to be on it. After one of my problem people went to her. Because you're going to have people that they're delightful people.
Right.
They just have expectations that you're not going to meet.
Mm-hmm.
Oh,
right.
They're scary. Have you had to divorce a customer, Tracey?
No.
Really?
That's good.
That says a lot about Tracey, guys.
I think so.
No.
I just called him.
To the detriment of my own self, I am a people pleaser.
I try to be too, but I've had one where I just had to say, I just don't think this is a good fit, and put it back on me. It's my issue.
Mm-hmm.
It's not your issue. It's my issue.
Yeah, the one I haven't divorced very many customers, but the first one that I did, it became very apparent to me that there was nothing I was going to do to make her happy, ever.
Right.
And that was the one that the lady said, don't put me on that list. Like, don't do that to me. Another friend that's a long armor, right? And I laughed and I was like, but she might act completely different. She goes, no, I gave her a list too. Like, I quilted for her twice and was like, yeah, this isn't going to get any better.
Right. Right.
And here's the thing. It's okay to be friends with other long armors.
Mm-hmm.
What I learned when I started becoming friends with long armors in the area is the same customers were giving us all problems. Like, they're going to all of us, first of all. That's the one thing to understand is my customers are going to other long armors too. It's just based on when they can get their quilts, and that's fine. Or, it also may be like when I was free motioning quilting, they might have wanted something computerized, or now that I'm not really free motion quilting anymore, maybe they want it free motion quilted, right?
Right.
So I don't offer all services, and I have to expect that they're going to go to another long armor too.
Right.
But it's interesting when somebody says, so have you quilted for? And you go, yeah. And they go, how did that go? Right. And all of a sudden you realize, yeah, we're both having that same issue with that same. At that person, it's not at that time, it's not the long armor, right? If you have 2 or 3 people having a conversation, and they're talking about relationship and how things are going, with one person, and it's the same for all 3, it's not the long armors at that point.
Well, it's just like there was a string of there's quilt shops across the nation that have been robbed by the same couple.
Yeah.
And I didn't say anything when they got us, and they nabbed my employees' wallets out of our break room. And I didn't say anything to anybody because I was probably prideful, a little bit shameful. I mean, I was probably just beating myself up about it. I should have broadcast it to absolutely every other quilt store right around us, because that means that those people in our area, and they've gone across the United States. There are pictures of them across the United States walking into quilt stores. She distracts the staff. He goes into the back. He grabs the wallets. Within 20 minutes of my employees' wallets being stolen, one of them had $1,000 within 10 minutes because they went right over here to the Walmart and it had $1,000 on her credit card. These people are going across. I should have said something.
And they have the proof, obviously. And that's it. If you're going to say something, you also need to have the proof. Like,
right. And I'm not, I mean, it's going to protect other people in certain situations.
well, yeah, but you don't want to say something about something that happens to not be true, right?
Right.
So you did have proof. She had video proof of this too. So it's not like she's slandering them or defaming them or anything, because,
Wow.
From New Mexico to the Northeast to down in the South to up in Montana, Texas. Like these people have been.
I can guarantee you, if somebody's stealing from Walmart, there's a picture of somebody in that somewhere in that Walmart.
I know. But so yes, it was reported to the police, and once we got the word back, and then I saw somebody else. So what I did is when I saw like that there was a picture of the store said, "Hey, these people just came in. Just be careful." I showed it to my employees. I said, "Were these does this look familiar?" I said, can you tell me anything about these guys?" I didn't even say anything. They're like, "Oh yeah, those are the people that came and got us." You know what I mean? Kind of thing. So I didn't even I said, "Look at this picture. What do you guys think?" So it was just, and I asked them without them hearing from each other too, right? To make sure, because I'm with you, Angela. I'm not going to say anything about somebody unless, I know.
And if I do send things, it's going to be something that I say in a private group and not something that I put out on Facebook, my Facebook page for everyone to see.
Yeah.
There would have to be like the police asking me to do it for me to do that. Right. Yeah. Which sometimes they do ask you to do some really weird things that you're like, do you really want me to do that? Right. Not so much with, here's the thing. I didn't always manage or own a quilt shop. I used to manage restaurants. Right. So when we would get bad bills and stuff, they'd have us post pictures at times.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's the thing.
Trying to get the person to come in to complain because they wanted the person.
Right.
So, yeah.
Well, on that positive note, guess what? We're at 50 minutes already.
Wow.
Time flies when we have fun talking about how you should set up your long arm room and enjoy it. But first, that's the other thing. No matter what you do and all of this stuff that we tell you that stuff.
It's supposed to be enjoyable.
Yeah.
If I wanted to be miserable, I'd go back and work for a traditional job.
Or managing those restaurants.
Yeah. I will never, ever manage fast food again unless my family's starving.
Yes.
I'm saying it here. It will not happen. I'm a good manager. I don't like doing that. And I don't like who I become when I do that.
Right. Oh, yeah.
So, yeah. No, not happening.
Yes. Well, you guys
knowing your limitations is an important thing.
Right. And there you go. Let's end with make sure you know your limitations.
Yeah.
Those are part of your boundaries.
Good advice.
Mm-hmm.
So fabulous, Angela. Look at you, the philosopher. Quilter.
Every once in a while I have a good idea. The blind squirrel will get a nut eventually.
All right. It's that, ladies. Everybody, if you could please subscribe. And if you can give a thumbs up or a comment.
Tell your friends.
Share. If you could share this would be fabulous.
Yeah.
So it's so much fun to be able to do this. We're so honored that we get to do this. And we are very happy that you considered taking your time out of your day to watch. So have fun, guys. We will see you next time, ladies.
Bye, everyone.
Bye.